My name is Doron, but today I'm joined by a very special guest. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Doron, thanks for having me. Hate to brag, but I've got a cool shirt.
You absolutely do. You are dressed more for a constellation piece of content than I am. So thanks for that.
I've out-constellationed you.
You did. I've got the nice background though, so
Yeah,
I
you're
uh,
better.
I I take that one.
Truce.
Well, I am joined today by Matt Chretien. He's the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Intellinetics. Matt, thanks so much for being here today and taking on the co-host duties while Brian, my usual co-host, is away. Matt, do you want to just take a second and introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, Doron. So Intellinetics is a digital transformation software and services company. And really, that's about helping businesses implement an all-digital model of critical processes that are important to the organization. And in doing so, that journey, we implement technology, best practice processes. Often there's AI involved in that,
Yeah.
where in the end, the processes are all digital, smarter, faster, more secure, compliant. And in that context, together with Constellation HomeBuilder systems, together we reimagined what an AP automation model for modern home builders and in an all digital format. How might that look? And together we were able to do that, and that's what's exciting about what we're going to learn today.
That's amazing. And you hit the nail on the head of two topics really as we're getting right now to the end of 2024. Two topics that have just driven so many conversations around our industry and so many others. Obviously, AI is one of them and its potential to impact every sector and every job. And then affordability and how much home builders, like any other business, need to be more efficient and automate their processes to bring down their own costs for their own kind of internal business purposes, but to pass as much of that on to the customer and be able to provide more affordable homes, and every bit counts. And truly, Intellinetics sits at the forefront of that, and that's why we thought you'd be the perfect co-host for our show today.
Hey, we're excited to be here. Data-driven everything, right? Best practices and modernization. It hits all three.
Absolutely. Now, Constellation HomeBuilder Systems recently held its Build Smarter conference in Austin, Texas. And Matt, you were involved in a really great session there with a fantastic builder based out of Utah, the CW Group. Matt, what can you tell us about CW Group?
So the CW Group is a NEWSTAR Enterprise platform user, home builder. They're a prominent builder in both northern and southern Utah. And they were looking to modernize and streamline really a lot of core processes. So they're engaged with a lot of the, kind of NEWSTAR ecosystem of solutions, and
Yeah.
payables was included within that evaluation. And they reached out to really better understand the solution that Constellation HomeBuilder Systems and Intellinetics had created, and they really were very successful at really getting the new capabilities into their business, and the opportunity in Austin in our session was for attendees to hear firsthand about how they did that, and what lessons learned, and really some feedback. And we're going to kind of peek more into that in our session today.
Exactly. It really was one of the most informative, buzzworthy sessions at Build Smarter, and we're lucky enough to have some of the CW Group team join us today to kind of pick up that conversation and share it with our Power to Build show listeners. So in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Donovan Huffman. He's the VP of Finance, and Robert Wheeler, the AP manager at the CW Group, for a really great conversation.
They are very knowledgeable. Every time I hear them speak, I learn something. So everybody get your notepads out if you're still analog, or whatever you use today, because you're in for a treat.
For sure. Well, with that, let's take a quick pause and we'll be back with today's guests.
Well, hi, Donovan and Robert.
How's it going, Matt?
Good to have this brain trust in this session. So it's really exciting. We're going to get to hear your thoughts directly from the source on your journey in AP automation. And I'd like to start, Donovan, if we don't mind, share with the listeners. Let's go back to the first conversation that we had, which seems like many moons ago and yesterday at the same time. But what were some of the things that were really central in driving your decision to, modernize your AP processing capabilities? What were the drivers?
Key drivers is that we had been doing a lot of our invoicing manually, had been on our forefront for probably 5-6 years. We'd been looking for something that could talk with your platform. Been trying to get others to integrate or asking Kelsey and them. And Kelsey introduced me to you and said, hey, I think we got a platform that's what you've been wanting for many, many years. And so then we started that conversation to figure out like what's best for us and if it works, and needing to do some testing and making sure that everything function properly, because it's not worth implementing if we can't get all the things that we wanted in it, or at least get close to it so that it worked not only for us in accounting, but also our end users.
And just to clarify that Kelsey would be the NEWSTAR account manager that
Yes.
the CW group would be working with.
Yeah, I've been asking her. I've been with the company 8 years, and so I've been asking for probably since day one if there was a platform that could talk for AP reading, doing the OCR, being able to go over to individual via a web browser or some platform on NEWSTAR so that they could approve their invoices rather than doing it the old manual way, which we were doing, which was getting emails, downloading those, printing them, handing them out to everybody, then having them returning it back to us. And most likely finding half the time everyone's blaming accounting that they didn't get paid, yet it's sitting on someone's desk. And so we really needed accountability, not only from our side, but also the accountability for the outside departments to ensure that it wasn't all just being blamed why vendors weren't getting paid on accounting. It was also being the accountability and visibility out on outside departments.
Fantastic. I do recall that you said something to the effect, well, Matt, it's always our fault. we need better tools to empower, right? Like you said, the others to do their part and really get what they really need in terms of visibility on the payments invoice lifecycle. And so we came to agreement working with Kelsey that CW Group was ready to take this step. Let's pivot to looking at the implementation process. So you were ready to make that step. You were ready to step into a fully integrated NEWSTAR AP engine, right? For the benefits that you talked about. How did you do it? And I know Robert, you had the role of really taking Donovan's vision and making it real, right? In terms of working with the project team. Can you talk a little bit about some of the overarching thoughts that went into, making all of those details come together for you?
Yeah, I think our first one was the kickoff calls with you, Matt. So like myself with you and Raina were exploring all the needs and ensuring it was possible, doing the testing up front, ensuring that we had all our, access, testing the accesses, building the rules or going over the initial set of rules and requirements that we were looking for, and ensuring that those were going to function correctly. And then as we got closer to going into the testing phase, that's when I did a kind of a handoff with Robert where we worked conjointly, but mainly went over to Robert because he was going to be managing it on the operation. So he needed to understand and basically, as he'll say, try to break the system to ensure it worked.
He's got a big hammer too. I've seen it. I'm like, he can't make that rock smaller. Oh, yes, he can.
So that was our kind of initial process was, high level, then started getting into the details and weeds, and then getting into the right people to do the transition and testing and making sure you had the not only Robert, who's going to, and myself as being the admins on it, but also going to the fact that we got to push it out to individual users and get their feedback and their buy-in on it and make sure that they're happy. And that's where it's in Robert's capable hands. And he had the same vision, done the same implementations that I've done before with other software to know that, hey, you have to test it, really try it, try and find the workarounds, find things that are going to make it better, or also, well, what does and does not work.
That's fantastic. And the Constellation professional services team teamed up with us in that upfront staging. And I do recall, we have a bit of a pre-flight. So if implementing NEWSTAR AP was going to be riding in a plane, we had our pre-flight checklist that you mentioned, starting with, the macro down to the business rules for approval workflows, right, by region and operational readiness. So we had kind of green lights in the technology side. All of the integration was there. We had a green light in the overall logic for approval, and the capture side, the AI capture stuff had gone. And then the spotlight, again, you kind of, then the heat lamp went over to you, Robert, and you really had that, a benefit, if you will, kind of a status and a prep work. But can you tell us what your thoughts were in the process of taking it through the steps that ultimately led to production being online?
As Donovan said, one of the first things we had to make sure was in place was the IT infrastructure. So we did a lot of testing on that to ensure that invoices would be processed and be pulled into the system properly. But once it got to that point, due to the fact that I've done several of these implementations, I've learned one thing that you have to do in the implementation process is you have to become as good of an expert as the people that are producing the program. So the initial setup was to learn everything that I possibly could about the system with Raina's help. So we set up bi-weekly meetings, about an hour each day, a couple of days a week, where we talked about different aspects of the program, where we went from setting up users to adding users to creating accounts for users and ensuring that all of those flowed where they were supposed to be. At the same time, we took and made sure that invoices that were coming into the system, that we were able to push them through and OCR read them to teach the system how to, what invoices were what, as all part of the process. Now, we obviously had our manual process still in place at this time. So we were in essence doing dual functionality, but we did not do dual functionality with the entire company. I had one person upstairs in our purchasing department that was working with me, and we would push stuff into the system. We would go up and check to see what he saw, what he didn't see. We worked strictly with him, and we looked at all the different things that were good from their standpoint, all the things that were bad from their standpoint. And this was the point where, as Donovan said, we tried everything under the sun to break it. We tried from crisscrossing approval groups to users to everything under the sun. And we found some things that worked. We found some things that didn't work. And when we found things that didn't work, we went back to the IT team with Intellinetics, and they built something that worked for us. And they continually updated, upgraded, and are continuing to upgrade the various points of it. Once we got to the point of where we felt like we had the capability of doing this, we decided to roll it out. But rather than trying to take and, as I like to refer, eat an elephant in one bite, we took and decided to eat the elephant in small bites, where we took one approval group and we took and monitored the invoices that came in and pushed the invoices that were for that group to that group and worked directly with that group, working out the bugs with it, going through the training process of teaching them how to code it and so forth. And the good thing about Intellinetics is that the coding process is tied directly to the NEWSTAR database and the NEWSTAR rules, which meant that coding errors became a lot less, because of the fact that the rules would not allow them to assign certain codes to certain projects. So we worked through those issues and made sure that those worked from a one person standpoint. And this was approximately a week that we went through this. And once the training of it was done and the working of it was done, we were ensured that things were working. And when it did work, we brought in and we added a couple of other departments in. So roughly the 3 departments we had in were handling roughly 80% of our Northern Utah invoices. And as we continue to work bugs out with them and training and teaching, we found things that were improving. We found that the speed of what they were accessing was considerably better. As Donovan talked about, we wanted transparency. We wanted to be able to say, this was sent here, this was sent there, here's where this is at. We were able to identify that stuff and improve our ability to track our invoices with it. Now, we ran into some pitfalls, and we continue to work through them and find workarounds. But as a general overall, the process was fairly smooth as we continue to add on different departments. And now we have 98% of all of our departments currently using the system.
Well, that's fantastic. And if it's interesting to kind of hear you guys had a kind of a building block, one phase built on the next, and you had the testing cycle that then led into, user experience, expanding that, and being able to address feedback both from the users and the system, right? The NEWSTAR team and Intellinetics. And as you look back at the impact of the system, let's fast forward to today, with those building blocks and that journey. What are the results? Like, what do you guys see today that you couldn't see or didn't have before it started?
I'd say one of our biggest things is being able to see where it's held up, being able to call out people and send reminders and saying, hey, you've got 10, 15 invoices pending out in your queue. Whereas before, we would have had them printed out and had no idea how many were sitting on a queue unless we were doing a paper tally before and tracking and in and out from the AP standpoint. I think the other big impact is being able to remind everybody, go into your queue. Accounting's going to do their part within 24 hours. Everyone knows our standard, and Robert and our accounting department in the AP, he's been really good at ensuring that, hey, if it is in accounting's world, we're going to process it in this certain amount of time. And so we're accountable for this. But second of all, it's going to be on your team to ensure you get them back in this time frame, especially for draws when they need to pull invoices.
Yeah.
That's the big one that Robert can highly speak upon, is throwing that accountability back out onto the purchasing teams, the sales teams, whoever's going to be approving their invoices. That's the biggest piece that I've seen as the improvements, is not only the visibility and accountability, but also, ensuring that things are completed.
That's great. In that look back as well, is there anything that you would do differently as well? What if you could go back, are there any just key thoughts that you have on refinement?
Doing it earlier or
Fair
having something earlier.
enough.
But I'd say it did come in at a good time for us, because we had ramped up significantly on our AP invoices that aren't PO related. And so that's why it was driving even more pertinent at the time when we did our discovery calls, is we had gone from just maybe a couple hundred invoices a month to, almost, I don't even remember the count now, Robert, but it was probably close to 500-600. So we, quadrupled our invoice data input.
So as you look ahead, and know so now you have the benefit of knowing this, you've modernized your back office around the payables lifecycle. It's fully integrated with NEWSTAR. You have the transparency and accountability that was the gauntlet right up front that you said, Matt, it's got to do this. You said Matt and Kelsey. And how do you feel this overall, modernization has prepared CW Group for its future?
I'd say our biggest thing is we're looking for scalability with our department for accounting. Being able to use our accounting department more than just, say, data entry, being more efficient with our team as we're growing, and being able to tackle on new projects and new demands, being able to use our team, like I said, more efficiently, not just to do the data entry, but be able to provide the AP analytics that we've been striving to do. So we're in the pursuit now to help redefine those roles in our teams so that they can provide those key analytics back up to not only myself, but also to our CFO and also our owners, so that they can make decisions from the payable side regarding our cash flow.
Well, that is fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to hear. The future's bright. That's great. I also like the part where you would have done it sooner.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
And I'd say the biggest key things that I've found in system implementations is having the key people in place that understand what needs to be, and having, having their stakeholdership in it, like Robert did. This would not have gone as smoothly or as quickly or efficiently without Robert understanding the needs and how it impacted not only for his role, but also for the ultimate impact, down the road for us as a team. And so him understanding the vision and taking the bulls by the horn, per se, and diving in and, dissecting the program, understanding it so that he could be basically the ownership of it on the back end, but also understood with the pain points of what the end users were. Without that, this wouldn't have gone successful.
Well, I tell you what, it is fantastic. And we're very grateful to hear firsthand you sharing this feedback on the entire journey. It's exciting to hear that you feel that the CW Group has a strategic asset that it didn't have prior. And Constellation HomeBuilder Systems does such a great job, always kind of tying everything they do really back to data-driven everything, and being that ideal modern home builder. And I think this kind of supports that whole kind of vision in a way that's incredible. And having dealt with a lot of AP, a lot of NEWSTAR customers in this journey, You guys are standouts. Thank you so much for the partnership and sharing this in our podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this podcast is all dedicated to innovation in the home building space. And I think that's exactly the story that we got to hear here today. So that was fascinating to hear. And I think I'd also just add, just learning about such a well-structured process and thoroughly thought through. I think there's a lot that applies to anyone in home building and in any industry, any function within a home building department, a home building business would learn a lot from this. So thank you so much, Donovan and Robert, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
I love learning about how they've been able to expand the NEWSTAR ecosystem, get that flexibility and solve their kind of unique business challenges, and just learning their process and the way they've implemented AP automation. I know is so applicable to so many home builders and could provide so much value across the industry. Matt, I know you get to connect with them frequently. Any specific highlights from that conversation for you?
Well, that was amazing. Yes. And I always value and learn when Robert really talks about the process of implementing the solution with the business users, with leadership, with, management and finance. And he really kind of, what we heard is, hey, verify technical readiness so that there's confidence in the process that's, they're going to engage in as they bring in users. Bring in the right business users, everyone's voice in those different roles, right? From site managers to lead, executives, operations, finance. So involve the right stakeholders, ample testing, right? We heard about that. Yep. Feedback loops, try and break it. And by the way, when he says he tries to break things, he was articulating it very well. And yep. All of those things were so valuable in making sure the confidence was there and any soft points were eliminated.
Right.
Phase rollout, right? We heard that as well. Now we're all ready. Let's expand it in an orderly fashion, in a controlled fashion. And even to this day, that mindset serves them well. They're in this continuous improvement mindset. And I would just say to any of the attendees, go to the Constellation website. This story is captured in a case study. Wait till you see the metrics in cost reduction and other improvements, and they're real. And now you understand more about how they did it.
Well, thanks for that plug. And yeah, just to add to that, there's a lot more content on our website, constellationhb.com. The success story, like Matt mentioned, there's lots of great blog posts, webinars, and more you can check out. And be sure to keep this conversation going with us all about home building and technology on our LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're a social company and lots of ways to keep that conversation happening. Lots for us to share and lots for us to talk about. So we thank you all for joining us on the Power to Build show today. If you have any feedback on the show, any insights you'd like to share on a future episode, just email us at podcast@constellationhb.com. We'd really like to hear from you. And if you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast service and leave us a like and review. That will help spread the word for the show. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. What a treat to have you with us. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk soon.